Again, hello, welcome. My name is Davion Fleming, Director of Admissions. We're super excited to have this event, really excited to share this information with you all because we know that this information is just pertinent. It's fairly important for folks who do need to engage with an independent school to help support them and make sure that the school is accessible to them. And so the flexible tuition program is something that's really core to our identity as a school. And we're really proud of a lot of the work that we're going to do. And it's still a bit daunting. And so we have a really great lineup of folks here to speak with you and walk you through the process a little bit and answer a couple of questions. And so our agenda for tonight is you'll get to meet the folks who are speaking tonight. We'll talk a little bit about the flexible tuition application, how to complete the parents' financial statement. We'll go over dates to know. We'll give you some quick tips and some resources, and then we'll do some FAQ. We're asking some FAQ from everyone. And then finally, we will end the night with some Q&A. And so here's who is presenting tonight. Again, I'm Davion Fleming, Director of Admissions. We're gonna just kind of go around the screen there. And so I'm gonna pass the virtual mic over to Jeanette.
Hi everyone, I am Jeanette Moore. I am the CFOO here at Lick-Wilmerding High School. And I work really closely on the flexible tuition program with Emily, reviewing all of the different applications. And I also work really hard each year on the budget for this as part of the budgeting process here at the school. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Emily.
Hi everyone, my name is Emily and I am the financial aid officer here at Lick-Wilmerding. And as Jeanette said, we work really closely together in determining the flexible tuition decisions. And I'm also the primary contact for our returning families should they have any questions regarding the flexible tuition application process. And Elizabeth?
Hi, good evening, everybody. We're so glad you're able to join us tonight. My name is Elizabeth Tackett. I'm Associate Director of Admissions, Operations, and Flexible Tuition. I'm also an alum of the school and was fortunate enough to be able to attend Lick on the Flexible Tuition program. I am your primary contact for all the prospective families, and I look forward to working with all of you. I'm going to pass it back to Davion.
Awesome. So let's see here. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is just a little bit more about our flexible tuition program in general. And so I'm going to pass it back to Jeanette, and she's going to talk a little bit about that.
Hi, everyone. So, you just saw the screen with all of our pictures. And if you take nothing else away from this presentation tonight, I really want everyone to take away that they have a contact here at the school. This should not be daunting. If you have any questions whatsoever, you now have the names of 4 of us that you may call and reach out to with questions. So to start out with, what is flexible tuition? Some schools refer to it as flexible tuition, some say index tuition, some say financial aid. For us here at Lick-Wilmerding High School, flexible tuition is a program that we're incredibly proud of. And as Davion mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, it is core to who we are as a school. It is through this program that we ensure access and socioeconomic diversity. 1 in 3 of our students here at the school are enrolled through the flexible tuition program, or a little bit more than 1 in 3. And our average flexible tuition is about $16,000 a year. So that is the amount that the average family will pay. But it's actually a wide range. It's a range of $750 and then to the full amount of $52,700. We have a budget of about $7 million a year. It's about 30% of our operating budget. I'd like to just take a minute just to pause right there. That is a huge dollar amount. It is, I believe, the largest program here in the city. And so it is very much part of just, a key to our operations here at the school with the $7 million budget. And the key for all of you to know is that it is a separate application. So you're required to do the regular application process here at the school, but also to apply for flexible tuition. And through this presentation, we're going to tell you more about that application process. And each year for an enrolled student in the flexible tuition program, you do need to reapply with decisions made annually based on demonstrated need. Next slide, Davian. So our goal throughout this entire presentation is really to help to simplify the application process and really encourage everybody just to take a deep breath. Because the first step is to log in. Here's the link here. The link is also on our website. And you're going to log in, you're going to create your email, login and password, and then you're going to see, you know, pages and pages of questions. I think there's about 14 sections to this application. Take a deep breath. This is the same program that is used by most schools in the nation. I believe there's about 2,000 independent schools that use this service. It's from an outside provider. It was originally initiated with National Association of Independent Schools. So it's, you know, you'll do one form, and that form will be used for all the schools that you are applying to, most likely, because I believe most of our peer schools also use the SSS form as well. So you'll do one form per household. So if you have multiple children in your household applying to different schools, it's the same form, it's the same fee. You're just going to complete the one form and do it for each, and put the information in there for each student. But for families that have multiple households, we do require a separate parent financial statement for each household to provide information on the income and assets of each household. So what happens? Like, what you're going to put in all this information? Where does it go? What does it do? Essentially, the program, the SSS program, uses information on your family size, your income, your expenses, and your assets to determine something called the recommended family contribution for tuition. And that is the recommended family contribution for all tuition of all tuition paying schools to which you might have students in. And then it gets divided by how many students you have in a tuition paying school. The most important variables within it are your family size, how many students are in a tuition paying school, and what is your income. So those are the key things, but it also does ask questions on things like how much do you spend on vacations a year? You know, it's a pretty long list of questions, but it should take about 30 minutes to an hour to complete, is my best estimate. So with that, let me go on and go to the step 2, Davian. So in addition to the PFS form, which is required for the SSS program, Lick does have 2 things that are specific to Lick. One is uploading the Lick-Wilmerding High School supplemental form. It's a 2-page form, asks some pretty basic questions, but this is really a place where you can put additional information about your family. We also ask questions about if you have retirement savings and if you get support from any other family members. And then the second thing is every school will ask for this, but some schools vary in terms of how many years of information they request. But we do ask for 2 years of tax returns and schedules and W-2s. When it calculates that recommended family contribution, as mentioned on the prior page, it actually will look at your 2021 information, but we do ask for 2020 because that provides a little bit of a window into if you have a lot of variance in your income from year to year. And so it just helps us to see that as well. So that is it for me. That I'm going to pass it over to Emily, actually over to Elizabeth.
Thanks, Jeanette. So next we're going to talk about completing the PFS. It's the parent financial statement. You'll hear us talk about it a lot as the PFS. The first thing to do is to visit this specific link. And before I continue on, I just want to make sure you all know that a recording of tonight's presentation along with the slide deck for this presentation in both English and Spanish will be sent to you after the presentation is over. So the first thing that you want to do is create a username or a password. If you already have an account, just go ahead and log into that existing account. And then you'll want to input our specific school code. So we put it here for you. It's 4630. Every school that your student applies to will have a different code. So just make sure that you input this one for us. Then you'll want to go ahead and complete your PFS. You'll want to gather your information on income and assets in advance. And then important, you want to make sure you choose the 2022 to 2023 academic year, since this is the year that your child will be enrolling. Any families with more than one student applying, you can complete one PFS per household. So in the instance of twins, you only need to complete one PFS. Just be sure to include both students as an applicant. And then one other thing, it might take you 30 minutes, it might take you an hour, but you are also able to save and exit and come back. We know that you might be balancing work and dinner and drop-offs and pickups. So know that you can save it and come back. Then you'll want to go ahead and pay the SSS application fee. The application fee is $55. SSS might waive the fee based on your income. Unfortunately, that's out of our control. So if for some reason they don't waive the fee and you would prefer that, we really encourage you to reach out to them, and you can reach them through email, or they have a phone number as well. Then you'll see after that actually, David, can you go back? Thank you. Families will see a report on the recommended family contribution. So first of all, don't worry. We make adjustments for the cost of living in the Bay Area, and these are not reflected in the number that you will see on SSS after you complete the PFS. So I just want to make sure you know that. And then finally, if you have questions while you're going through the PFS, we encourage you to take a look at this PFS workbook and instruction booklet, and it has step-by-step instructions. This booklet is available in both English and Spanish. It's actually available on our website, lwhs.org/affording, and you can find it in the green downloads box on the right-hand side. So we encourage you to go check out that resource. Next, we're going to talk about dates to know. So this is specific to new families. If you are a returning family and you're attending this presentation, please just know that your dates are a little bit different, and the business office should have communicated with you about that. But if you have any questions, though, please talk to Emily. So the first thing that you want to do is submit the parent's financial statement by January 20th, 2022. And then on February 14th, this is sort of when the next round of information is due. So you want to submit 2 years of taxes and your W-2s and 1099s with all of your schedules. So we need 2 years of taxes, meaning 2020 and 2021. And we'll also need the Lick-Wilmerding supplemental information form at this time. This is available to download from our website. We have it available in both English and Spanish, and it's also available through SSS. Then on March 18th, 2022, admissions decisions, including the flexible tuition amount, will be mailed to you. And it's flexible tuition amount should you qualify. March 19th, 2022, after 4 p.m., you will be emailed with your admissions decision. And again, should you qualify, your flexible tuition amount. And then March 25th, 2022, by noon, if you qualified for flexible tuition, we request that your enrollment agreement be returned by this time and date. So now that you know some of these dates and deadlines, I'm going to go pass it over to Emily to give you some quick tips on completing the PFS.
Hi, everyone. I know that completing the parent financial statement can be really overwhelming, and sometimes it can be hard to come up with the answers to some of these questions. So I have a few quick tips that may help you as you go through your PFS. The first quick tip is for the question about how much your family will contribute towards tuition for the 2022-23 school year. When answering this question, please be realistic about the amount your family will be able to contribute. I recommend creating a monthly budget of income and expenses to see how much your family can put towards the tuition. This number should not include any additional contributions you may receive from other sources. There is actually a separate question that addresses contributions towards tuition that you may receive from friends, families, or other sources. In the next part of the question, there's the estimated full cost tuition for the next academic year. Since the 22-23 school year tuition has not been finalized yet, you can put down last year's tuition, which is $52,700. And next slide. While completing the parent financial statement or the supplemental form, families may feel like the questions don't truly represent the current financial situation, or maybe there's been a change in circumstances, or maybe you just feel your situation needs some additional explanations. Well, there are two different areas where additional information can be added. One is at the end of the parent financial statement, and the other is at the end of the Lick-Wilmerding supplemental form. Feel free to use this space to tell us more about your family situation, or if there's anything you feel we may need to know. Next. And here are a few common questions we see a lot. Now understand that having your 2021 federal tax returns done by February 14th can be a real challenge. So what do you do if your taxes aren't ready by February 14th? You'll still have to submit a draft using your best estimated numbers for 2021, and we will calculate the flexible tuition using your 2020 taxes, your W-2s, and also your 2021 draft taxes returns. You can reach out to your accountant for assistance on completing a draft, or forms are also available on the IRS website. The next question will be, how does Lick handle multiple households? In this situation where multiple households for a student applying for flexible tuition, each household will be required to submit their own parent financial statement and tax documents, regardless of custody arrangements or legal arrangements. Our committee will calculate the total ability to pay using all household information, and it'll be up to each family to determine how the tuition should be split. If you do have extenuating circumstances that need to be discussed further, please feel free to reach out to Elizabeth in admissions office or anybody else at the presenter. And the last one of the most common questions is, we know that the flexible tuition application process can be a lot, and maybe you're not sure if your family should apply. So, can families wait to apply for flexible tuition until they know their child has been accepted? The answer is no. Our flexible tuition and admissions application process runs parallel to each other, and once the deadline has passed, we cannot accept any late flexible tuition applications. All the funds will have been distributed once the admissions decisions have been sent out. And now I'm going to pass it over to Davion and Elizabeth. Or Elizabeth.
Yeah, so again, as Emily said, we know that this process can be overwhelming. So we really want to make sure that you have all the resources that we have available to you as you complete your flexible tuition application. So again, on our affording page in the downloads box, and we'll put that link here in the chat in just a minute, we have the PFS workbook and instruction booklet, the tax primer, and the LWHS supplemental form, all available in both English and Spanish. Again, another reminder, these slides will be emailed to you after the presentation, so you'll be able to open these links, but we'll also put the direct link to our affording page in the chat for you. And now we're going to go into a time of questions. So before we get into a Q&A, we actually want to go through some of our most frequently asked questions and see if these answer anything for you. So one of the first things that we get a lot is, does applying for flexible tuition decrease the chance of admission to the school? So no, flexible tuition decisions are determined separately from admissions decisions. That being said, we are need aware, which means that our budget only allows for a certain percentage of our incoming class to enroll through the flexible tuition program. I'll pass it over to Davion.
Thanks. So the next question is there an income cutoff on eligibility for flexible tuition? The answer for that is no. There's no cap on income eligibility. The average income for our flexible tuition families is about $240,000. Finally, there's a question. If a family does not apply or receive flexible tuition one year, can they apply the following year? The answer is yes, any family is welcome to reapply or apply to the flexible tuition program. However, the school is seldom able to accept families into the program after 9th grade. Only a significant change in income or family situation year over year would qualify if funds are available. And we usually try to save a lot of our flexible tuition dollars for new and incoming students. And so it really does just kind of depend year to year whether or not we will have any extra funds available to help families. And so now we're going to go into a question and answer segment. And so we went over a lot of information, and there were a handful of questions in the Q&A already. And hopefully some of those questions were answered. And if not, if you could just put them back in there, that would be great. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we'll answer a couple of these questions. And so one question that we have here is academic effort considered in flexible tuition or solely dependent on household financials? And so we look at all of the tax information, all the information that you send in, and so it's going to be solely on kind of demonstrated need for our families. And so academic effort or any sort of merit scholarships or merit aid, and what is called in many other circles, is not going to be considered for our program. Other folks want to add to that? All right. So there's a question about the $240,000 average. Yes, so the question was it an average or the upper limit? That is the average. Am I getting that right, Jeanette?
Correct. That is the average, not the upper limit.
Awesome. Like we previously said, families have a lot of different circumstances happening around their household. Some folks may have 3 or 4 children that are in institutions like Lick or maybe in college, and so they have a lot of things that they're paying for, and so we try to be understanding of that. Alrighty, let's see here. And so there's a question, do we look at gross or net income?
The answer will be both, but really it gets to a net income level, and that's where it becomes calculated off of. But we do start with your gross income, and then there's questions around like what's, how much are you putting away in your retirement plan and what have you. So it is it looks at your net income, and then there's some income protection that goes towards it, and there's a complicated formula. But the easiest answer is we look at both, and both questions will be asked on the application.
All right, so here's another question. If a student is accepted for flex for the 9th grade, does that carry over for the rest of their time at Lick?
Assuming nothing has changed in your financial picture, it absolutely carries over. It is our goal that you're treated consistently throughout your 4 years here, and you can plan accordingly in your 4 years. That being said, if you win the lottery tomorrow and then you have to resubmit a form for the next year, then you would expect that things would change. We do require families to submit an application annually so we can look for changes in family situations. But it really is our goal that what you come into the school on, you can expect to pay for your 4 years with a slight increase for tuition. That it's about a 4% increase per year is our average tuition increase.
Right. So there's a question here about estimates for 2021. So what's the best way to submit estimates for 2021? Should families fill out 1040s and schedules as best they can and submit those?
Yes. Based on your 2020 tax return, if your financial situation is relatively similar, I would use your best estimates from that. Or you can also look at your December pay stubs. There's a year-to-date totals. Also compare your 2020 1040s to see how they compare. You can come up with your best estimates that way. Or you can also ask your accountant, or if you have any questions, you can always, I can maybe help a little with that as well.
Awesome, thanks. Let's see here. So there's a question here. What if a student is admitted into Lick but does not qualify for flexible tuition? What do we usually kind of do in those circumstances?
So in that circumstance, you would get an admissions letter that says your child has been admitted to the school, but you do not qualify for flexible tuition. So it doesn't impact the admissions decision, but you would get a letter that essentially says you're in, but you don't qualify for flexible tuition.
Another question with regard to retirement accounts and pensions. So how heavily are those used as assets are calculated into the
We do use that information, but we also are realistic that families should be saving for their retirement. So we make substantial adjustments with the goal of encouraging families to also save for retirement. The algorithm that is used by SSS is more influenced by income than assets, but it does come into play. So that is why we ask questions about that on the supplemental application as well.
Mm-hmm. And then what about equity? How is that factored in? How is it different or the same for as retirement?
Home equity?
Yes.
Yeah, so home equity also does come into, it does get factored in. There are questions on the application that are, what is your home's value and what is your current mortgage on your home? So it is part of the asset, part of the equation as well. But as I mentioned in the first question, income plays more heavily into it. It is not our hope that families are having to tap into a home equity loan in order to afford a Lick-Wilmerding education, but it is something we have to consider as part of the equity in the process, because clearly, you know, families make decisions and choices as to where they live, and so we do need to look at that, you know, so we can look at all different family situations.
Let's see here. Sorry, I'm like trying to read a bunch of these questions in here. Can we talk a little bit about how when a family reapplies, sometimes and in many cases, a family will receive a raise at their job, or they'll get a promotion. And so how does that, how have you seen that kind of change from year to year when someone gets, you know, maybe a $10,000 raise? I'm just making that, I just made that up, or they receive a promotion. How do we kind of factor that in?
So we do look at it from year to year. A $10,000 raise is not going to impact the, just to put that number out there that you threw out there, Davion, is not going to impact the equation by very much. However, if a family does cash in options one year and all of a sudden the income's going from the, you know, the 240 to a much larger number because of stock options that have just gotten cashed in, you would see an impact on the award in that type of a situation. So it is a case by case basis, and it really has to do with the magnitude of the change.
There's a question about 529 college investment plans and if that affects flexible tuition.
It is one of the questions on the application, and it does have some impact on the actual output as well. So there is some impact based on a family's 529 plan. Because part of what the calculation is doing is looking at how much funds do you have available to pay for high school, but it's also takes into account that you should be saving for college. And so the 529 plan kind of goes towards the end part of the calculation is the savings for college that goes into it.
Let's see. So there's a question with regard to, you know, one of the questions that we ask on the supplemental form is how much do you think your family can pay or afford? rather. And so to what extent do we use that amount versus the amount that comes up through SSS? How do we kind of marry those two things together?
My best advice is to be realistic for what you think your family can afford, and to really think carefully about that number. The number that's going to come out of SSS is likely to be a larger number than what you believe your family can afford to pay, because it does not take into account the high cost of living here in the Bay Area. So I think when you really think about that number, it's to be realistic, but also on the other side of it, it's, if you are a family that has a very high income and we see a very low number there, then that can also be a sign that maybe we're not going to be able to get to a number that's going to work for your family as well. So I do encourage you to think carefully about that number.
Yeah, so there's a question around when exactly do you learn, if you qualify for flexible tuition, and what your kind of package looks like. So Elizabeth, can you shed a little light on that for folks?
Yeah, so we give admissions decisions and flexible tuition amounts at the same time. The processes, they run parallel to each other. So on March 18th, we'll mail that packet out with the information. On March 19th, you'll receive that information via email. So you'll get packets in two different versions. And based on that amount, we always encourage you to reach out to us if you have any questions. But then that enrollment agreement will need to be returned to us the following Thursday. So yeah, just to reiterate, you'll get that information at the same time.
So thank you. So for folks to contextualize, there's some questions that are like super specific to your circumstance, and so we would really encourage you to ask those questions of one of the 4 people here today, because some of them merit a little bit more conversation, and may not be kind of as pertinent to the many other folks that are on tonight.
And while Davion is continuing to look through different questions that you all have, I just want to reiterate, I am your primary contact through the admissions process, through the flexible tuition admissions process. So if you have questions as you're going through, you need help with your PFS, you have a specific family circumstance that you want to share with us and talk about, I really encourage you to reach out to us. You can email us directly at admissions@lwhs.org. You're also welcome to call us. I'll put our number in there as well. We're happy, I'm happy to have conversations with any of you at any time. That we know this process can be very daunting. That's one of the reasons we're really excited to host this workshop tonight. It's a wonderful opportunity for us to share about this process and shed some light, and provide some transparency for something that can be very intimidating. So yeah, again, please reach out at any time. I'll go ahead and put our phone number in there as well.
Thanks, Elizabeth. So there's a question here in the Q&A section. If one's child is accepted and offered flexible tuition, to what extent is that amount negotiable?
We always encourage families to reach out that week, and you can certainly reach out to any of us to have additional conversations. I think if we have missed something as we're going through and you want to make sure we need to be more aware or have a conversation, we certainly encourage you to reach out to us. The way that it works here in San Francisco, it's a 1 week time period from when you get that admissions letter to when you accept, actually a little bit less than 1 week. So it is a pretty quick turnaround. So we encourage you, as soon as you get it, to, if you have additional questions, please get on the phone, and we can at least let you know if we're unable to change it. But I encourage you to reach out and ask the question.
Right. And to piggyback off of that, and there was a question in the Q&A about this, that 1 week time frame, many, not all of the independent schools in the San Francisco Bay Area were about on the same timeline. And so you should be receiving the same sorts of letters from the schools that you'll be applying from, so that you can make a well-informed decision about which school your child goes to. And so if you are accepted to Lick and you have your flexible tuition amount from us, and then you should have it from other schools on the same date, so that you can kind of compare a little bit there. There's a question here. What would we consider high income?
We have a wide range of incomes. As Davion mentioned, the average is $240, but a high income, I think, probably means something different for every one of us here on this call. I would say the maximum to which we see here in the flexible tuition program is around $450 to $475. So to me, that's what I think of as high income. But also, to be realistic, if you have three students in an independent school that costs $52,000 a year, one can understand how that family would also qualify in our flexible tuition program.
Mm-hmm. So the $52,000 number that Jeanette just mentioned didn't come out of thin air. That is $52,700 is the highest amount that families pay, and if they are attending Lick. So we did share the range earlier. It is quite a big range, and families that are in part of the flexible tuition program, they are kind of all over the place within that range. Let's see here. So there's a question about how much families spend on vacations, and how is that kind of factored into our calculus, if you will.
Sure. So it is information that's provided, but it does not go into the SSS calculation. It is something for us to understand and be aware of as we think about your family's budget and your capacity to pay for independent school. But I think the common statement you'll hear from every school is really education is a family's priority. And so as we look at income available after you pay for your mortgage and the basics, it's really the priority of education is really, we want to make sure that every family understands that is the where the priorities lie. But we also are realistic, and we want families to take vacation. And so, we wouldn't expect that number to be zero.
There's a question about bank statements. And so are families required to submit bank statements?
No, we do not require families to submit bank statements, but we may often follow up with a clarifying question if we don't understand something that shows up on your parent financial statement.
So there's a question here that's more suitable, I suppose, for Elizabeth. And if a student turns down admissions and flex tuition, how do you select someone from the waitlist who also needs flex? It's a good question.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we know sort of a pool of applicants that we're looking at. One of the things we do at Lick is we don't have a wait list, we have a wait pool. As that information comes to us, that's one of the reasons we ask students to submit that information about whether or not they want to attend by that Thursday, so that we still have time to offer to another student who might require flexible tuition. And we still have a day or so to do that as they're also making decisions amongst other schools. So I think a lot of it just comes down to what we have available in our budget. That's probably the simplest answer I can give. We want as many students as we can get, but if we have a student who has a specific flexible tuition amount, we're probably looking for a student requiring a similar amount to offer to as well. Not because there's not more qualified, not because there's not a large qualified pool, but just simply comes down to numbers at that point, unfortunately.
Mhm. Okay, so here's a question about SSS. So we mentioned that SSS may not factor in COLA or the cost of living in San Francisco. So how do we factor in the cost of living in if SSS says that a family may not qualify for flexible tuition, or they may qualify for maybe a small amount?
Yeah, here at the school, we have a cost of living adjustment that we apply to all families across the board. So we treat all families equally as we adjust for the cost of living here in the city.
There's just kind of a general question about the weight pool, and let's asking if we can talk a little bit more about that. So in the admissions world, we send out a certain amount of acceptance letters, but not everyone decides to come to Lick. And so when that happens, then we go to our waiting pool, and we take a second, a third, a fourth, or a fifth look at some of the applicants that are there, and we try to find another student who we feel will be an outstanding match to accept into the program. And so when looking at that, it's this grand mosaic. It's a puzzle. And as we're looking to create a community, we're also looking to create a wonderfully and beautifully diverse community, a very well-rounded community. And so we, instead of having a wait list and kind of numbering students down the line, we prefer to have a wait pool, because that gives us a lot more flexibility in a lot of different ways. For example, if we were to, if we were looking at, I don't know, gender balance, right? Then, and we needed to admit, I don't know, like 10, 15 more boys, then we would kind of look there to achieve that sort of balance, right? And so every school, again, it's going to have different priorities and different things that they're looking at. And what we're looking for in a particular weight pool is going to differ. It's going to be different each time we kind of go there.
Right. Davian, I see a question about inflation. Jeanette, I wonder if you could talk about the increase of cost of living every year, and how we take into account that information as we create flexible tuition amounts.
Yeah, I think if you were to look at the Lick tuition over the last decade, it's gone up on average 4% per year. And so I think the easiest way to think about it is if you are paying $10,000 this year, you should expect it to go up 4% for subsequent years. We are in an interesting time right now. Inflation is outpacing where tuition increases have been. But we really look here to try to have consistency, and it has been at about a 4% increase. So that is the number that I would most guide somebody to look towards for as you think about your 4 years here at the school.
Awesome. And then Jack, there's in kind of concert with that,
Yeah.
how are we taking into account tuition increases? So, there's inflation, there's tuition increases.
Yeah, I think for a family, it's really just thinking about it as a tuition increase for the family, at that rate of 4% per year is the easiest way. It's not, I think if something has happened in your home where your rent has gone up substantially due to a change, that was something we would look at as a change of circumstance. And so we would look at adjusting your award accordingly. So we do take all of that into account from year to year. But if everything is sort of steady state and your income's gone up a little bit and your expenses have gone up a little bit, I think that the most basic way to think about it is that your tuition would increase at the same level as the overall school tuition each year, unless something has substantially changed in your financial picture. It is not our hope or our goal to have families come in at one amount and then dramatically increase it the next year. We really want families to be able to plan and to budget for their 4 years here at Lick-Wilmerding High School.
So the PFS asks for school tuition and fees, and then some of the other things, transit meals separately. So what are all the total fees at LWHS? And so families are assuming, or this particular family is assuming that they will have to supply their student with a laptop, etc. But what is included in tuition for Lick?
Sure. So included here in tuition is lunch, your athletics, it's your tuition and your books. We do not include the cost of a laptop, so that is something for you to think about on your child's first year here at the school. And we do provide some support for families in our flexible tuition program for transportation. We recognize that it can be quite onerous to have to go from on BART across to Lick-Wilmerding every single day to the East Bay. And so we do provide some subsidy for our students for the transportation costs.
What about like other kind of events or activities, like perhaps like prom, or maybe if a student is engaged in debate, where they may have to travel somewhere for a tournament or something like that. How do we kind of
sadly we haven't been in an environment for the last year and a half where people are traveling to go anywhere, and we hope to be back to that. We used to have 2 trips each summer. And if a student were to go on one of our trips, for example, we would prorate the cost of that trip based on their flexible tuition award as well. So we really do try to cover the costs associated with the Lick-Wilmerding education. And we do have what we call miscellaneous flex funds to help cover that.
Let's see, we'll take this as the last question for tonight. So for some families, their income, because of their profession, may vary wildly from year to year. And so is it possible to come in on flexible tuition and then shift out and then back in? How might that work?
I would say that is a good opportunity for you to maybe reach out and have a conversation with one of us here to understand it more. But yes, we have seen families that do have variation in income, and they do come in one year and then, perhaps leave the program and then come back. But it really is very specific to an individual family. So that might be one where we could talk about it offline.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. I know that there was a ton of questions that we didn't get to. But again, we really encourage you to reach out to one of us to try to get those questions answered, especially kind of on a one-on-one basis where we're able to have a lot more flexibility about what things we're able to answer and really kind of speak a little bit more, particularly to your family situation. And so please feel free to reach out to us, email us, call us, utilize the lwhs.org/reporting page to answer many of your questions as well. As a reminder, this event is recorded. And so we will take this back, do a little bit of editing, and then send this out as soon as we can, along with the slide deck. And so we hope that all of those resources will be really useful to you all. We hope that this was really useful to you, and that yeah, this serves you as you move forward through the application process, and you feel that Lick is a place where your family can feel supported. You can feel that you are part of the community, and that your family has access to all of the various things that every other student has access to, regardless of how much you may be paying for tuition. And so we hope that you have a really great night. We're really looking forward to meeting and learning more about your child through the admissions process, and we'll see you in a month or a little bit over a month for interview day. Have a great night.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Take care.
you.
Bye.
Bye.